Hi everyone, welcome to another sketching session. I have some fun photo references from one of my favorite sites, Croquis Cafe, and I think I'll just do a couple of gestures on the sheet of paper. Nothing too spectacular or intricate. Let me make sure that paper is nice in view. Okay, maybe a little bit of shading, but mainly just having fun. Starting here with one very expressive torso tilt. Don't want to work too large so that I can fit plenty on here. There we go. This would be the rib cage here. And then the pelvic area would be somewhere here. I can see a little foreshortening or actually plenty of foreshortening for upper leg here. And the other leg is nice and stretched, actually kind of an overstretch into the toes right over there. And now we get to define the arms a little bit. And it's kind of the question how far I want to go, but I do like the kind of expressive positioning of the hand. Here I'm trying to already estimate the size of the hand. And for these fingers I want to mainly catch the fanning rhythm gesture, not draw each finger individually, but see how they relate to one another. And yeah, there's more refinement here in the silhouette and everything. We'll get there. At least we can get there if we so desire. Let's also be quite loose and gestural with the head, so I'm looking for this kind of oblong triangular shape, and I'll insert a line or two to give myself some idea of the positioning of the face. There's a lot of hair in the back, and I could think about a little bit of refinement for the jaw. But okay. The other hand is also resting, well, at least partly on the shoulder, and once again I want to regard as one shape the fanning of the fingers, and get a very gestural shape indication for the palm of the hand as well. So we're getting something like this. Now the whole pelvis area is a little bit lower in the reference than it is with me, but I can easily amend that ever so slightly, pull this down. And that's you know, the fun part about sketching. It's something you can do, and then, well, you assess your sketch, and if something looks off, you can go ahead and refine it or improve it. Here we would have the belly button, and I'm gonna add a little bit more of this contour. You see the rib cage here jutting out, and then out comes the pelvic bone with the iliac crest. And so the way I'm holding my pencil, I let that aid in the kind of line that I am after. So if I want a broad, light, soft, fluffy stroke, I hold the pencil flat and I hold it perpendicular to the direction in which I want to move. And if I want a more crisp line, I get this alignment with the direction of the stroke. And of course I can vary the direction while maintaining the same orientation for the tip and get a little bit of a more calligraphic character to the line. And there's probably about 10 other ways to treat the pencil, hold it, and get it to give all kinds of nice effects. I'm now just indicating a little bit of the surface he's seated on. I'm gonna simplify it and group it together. Don't want the attention to be there. This is indication of the calf shadow line, and out from under this comes, from under this surface comes the knee. A little bit more length in total to the leg. Okay. What am I missing? I'm missing the breasts. There's not much going on this right breast. To our left, her right breast, as it's stretched. The other one is showing a little bit of silhouette. Something like that. Indication of a nipple, indication of another nipple. A little bit of overlap for this deltoid muscle here. And now if I want to, I'm not sure how well this shows up on camera. I'm working fairly small here, but I am now looking for the fingers that can now follow this swoop, this rhythm, this gesture, maybe for the other finger as well, or the other hand. I see these two fingers grouped together. Maybe I'll keep them grouped together a little bit more, and the pinky is kind of loose and relaxed. So I think it's maybe a nice time to do some shading. Just looking for the final touches here in the neck and the connection to the rest of the figure, but I think all in all it's good enough. So maybe a little bit of the hairline indication here. Let's apply some shading. I do have a little bit of sandpaper here. Don't know if you can see it, but sometimes use it. It's a little bit coarse of a grain. 120. I like 180 better. Don't know if I still have that, by the way. Well, there you go. 240 even. So I can kind of quickly resharpen my pencil, at least for the time being. At some point I'll have to chop off the wood and expose more of the lead. But let's look for light and shadow. Light is obviously coming from the right, and the challenge is going to be to keep it simple. Underside of the jaw, the eyes, much of the, or actually everything of the hair. The hair is quite curly and lively and not as blocky as I have it, but it's usually a good idea to start with something rather simple to add levels of detail and complexity and intricacy to that. I can definitely show how all the fingers are casting a shadow on the shoulder area beneath it, and you know, this whole finger here is in shadow. No, I definitely need to think about how I'm going to simplify all the shapes of shadow and light. It's quite tricky, I would say, in this instance, especially around the torso, with a lot of, well, to me, a little bit ambiguous values. Is it dark? Is it light? I need to think about the overall forms, the light direction, and how that shows, or how that would show where the light is hitting. Then I need to think about what I can or even must do to just get a clear read. So this is the kind of shadow pattern for the overall breast here, and then it comes back with the rib cage here receiving a bit more light, and then into the belly. And the fun thing is the whole area here on this side of the belly, as she's hunching over, it's actually catching quite some shadow. So I'm probably best off capturing that now. And see if this shape design for the shadow value will work. If not, I can ask myself why it doesn't work and what I could do to improve upon it. We see a very clear shadow shape for the knee and the leg here, the upper leg. And I'm gonna extend it into this area of cast shadow. Something like that. So what do I think of this area of shadow here? I think it's okay. I do want to make sure that I show this being a cast shadow from this breast, and I also want to make sure that the navel here, the belly button, remains readable, legible. Yeah, this looks okay to me. It's not perfect, but it's okay. The other arm. And I should, of course, always keep asking myself how far I want to take this. I'm gonna put the other arm completely, or the forearm on this other side, completely in shadow, even though there's a light hitting it subtly. Once again, with some simplification, I think I want to draw the conclusion that I'm probably better off showing a simple shape and yeah, I am moving across the figure quite a bit at this point. Here we have the simple ball of the knee and tube shape of the leg. Now I can add a bit more shadow so that I contrast the leg nicely against this element in the foreground. I think all in all I see a little bit more shadow on the back side of the neck. I haven't done anything with the rest of the face. And by the way, you see some smudging occurring. That's all fine, no problem. So Well, at this point, I can start a new one. I like to see if I can't come in with some final nice outlines. And I'm gonna just simplify this seated or surface on which he's seated a little bit. And yeah, if you want to, you can come in and clean up some excess sketchy lines. Maybe what's also nice to show is the kind of power of smudging a bit, so I get my fingers a little bit clean and I can drag this charcoal from the dark into the light. I'm creating a softer transition for form shadow areas this way. I'm also creating halftones. And I also, with a little bit of a clean finger, because I'm lifting and dragging the charcoal, I'm ever so slightly lightening the whole value in the shadows, which I can use to then darken things like the core shadow. And I would say with some practice, more than I have, one can get quite refined with all these areas and values. So you see me now adding some darker areas to that area where the shadow originates, or where we see the terminator, because that is most often where we will see a terminator or a core shadow, which helps the effect of roundness in the form read. Now I'm throwing in some frivolous little swirls and curls and getting some fun in the sketch. A little bit of indication of the mouth, the chin, not too much, doesn't matter that much. Adding some dark to the hair. Okay, well, already taking way too long probably for simple gesture practice, but sometimes it's just a little bit of too much fun to abandon a sketch quickly. in the middle of the rib cage there. Sometimes I want to abandon the sketch as quickly as possible. That can also happen. In this case, I'm having quite a bit of fun. I'm gonna maybe show a little bit more clearly the light hitting here, especially around this side of the belly button. Well, I think the way I'm doing detail now and falling silent, it's probably not too interesting anymore to watch. So this is probably a good time to start another one. I'm slightly lifting some of the value here, and I'm gonna soften this area, but all in all, let's see, am I satisfied? All in all, I'm satisfied. All right. Let's do another one. It's a little bit small camera. Maybe I'll make a nice large photo later on. How long have I been sketching? Half an hour. Well, half an hour is fine for a sketch with a little bit of rendering. Okay, another expressive pose, this time arm raised up. I'm gonna find the torso first. It's the line from shoulder to shoulder. Well, it's not vertical, but actually not far from it. And you know, I can just establish the kind of width that I'm gonna need for this torso, and I'll move over to the middle line and show there very clearly the kind of gesture. This would be about where the buttocks hit, and again a very soft light touch at this point. So that I can give myself a little bit of leeway and refine later. There we go. Here we get one leg. And the other leg is coming in like this. with the shoulder here. Shoulder here, dropping down the arm, and it rests somewhere here on this calf. And we see the trapezius quite tensed because of the the raising of this arm and the pushing back of this arm. And I can find once again a simple shape. It's pretty much a side view again for the head. Simple shape indication for where I think the head should be, with the other shoulder coming up like this, and then, well, we'll see the rest of the arm moving out. I'm gonna replace the ear. I'm looking now for a bit more refinement with the placement of the face and head compared to the body. Now, I think this is also a nice example of, well, for me, for myself, knowing when to switch to a little bit more decisive linear application, not linger in this fluffy construction for too long. At some point it's good to commit, even though it might not be 100% accurate. And let's also commit to the shape here of the buttocks. And we see this strong pelvic bone, iliac crest, sticking out here. And I think I say this plenty, I like to have curves and swoops and, you know, energetic, frivolous, flowy lines, but also every once in a while the straight, also with the female body. There's just plenty of landmarks, in my opinion, that call for a little bit more of a linear approach to capture the character, and it all in all always, in my opinion, makes for a little bit more interesting visual if there's a combination of curves and straights. This appeals quite a bit to a design principle called variation or difference or contrast, which states or banks on the proposition that not everything has to be completely uniform. Things can be different, things can vary and still form a unity. There's still a knee here, or a foot here, but okay, I think this is a second sketch. And once again, the lighting conditions are not completely clear, far from ideal. I'll look for my eraser. I have a couple of erasers. One is a more firm eraser, which in this case can be used to do some cleanup. There was quite a bit of searching for the gesture. And now I'm just gonna quickly hatch in some value. I do wanna look for the simple shapes. I'm squinting, by the way, so I can see quite easily the simple shapes of light and dark. And yeah, there's a lot of light hitting on the left side of the spine here. I think for simplicity's sake I might just obscure it all in shadow now, and later on use my eraser to lift out that area of light. Here the leg and a little bit of cast shadow from one buttock onto the other will help communicate the form. Already showing a little bit of a core shadow and occlusion as well, but not too much. And yes, this other leg is also catching a sliver of shadow. It's actually turned a little bit, well, maybe I can show that, towards us like this. The light coming from the right a little bit shining into the plane, the picture plane. We don't see a lot of shadow, but I can still show some, and maybe even a bit more than I would in the reference, just to clarify. Now, in this arm I can clearly show the arm coming out, catching light, and around the elbow joint here towards the bottom of the lower arm, towards the wrist. I can show it all catching shadow. Here we see the scapula, which is a small local form, and I'm not sure how much I want to refine all the anatomy on the back. It would be quite a challenge for me with my limited knowledge, but it would be fun. So let's see, what have we got? already pretty clear rendering, but let's do this smudging again. I'm gonna eliminate just a tad bit of the sketchy lines. And this smudging, I'm not sure. I'm gonna keep the recording in view now because I'm not sure how well it catches on camera. It's already quite subtle here in real life. So it might just be too subtle for the camera, which means that I'm gonna have to make it more visible by applying a stronger, darker layer of charcoal initially, and also look at what I can do with the camera contrast in the recording. So it's well, I think it shows a little bit, not too much, but I can live with it. Now this small or smaller shape of light hitting the left side of the spine here. Let's see, does that show up? Yeah, it does. I can really suggest this undulation in the back. And now lightly grazing the core shadow to get it somewhat darker. This is a nice contact line here where we will see a lot of dark. And again, some lines show a beautiful curvature. Some lines are more straight. Sometimes we see a lot of visual activity, sometimes we see more rest. So yeah, I'm pushing now for the lines and values and contrasts to whatever stage I feel is appropriate or nice. If I use more pressure, I am sure to hold it very close to the tip so as not to break the charcoal. It is not as breakable as a thin stick of fine charcoal, for example, but still it is just charcoal, so with enough sideways pressure it'll snap. And once again, it's a question of how far I want to take all this before I move over to or move on to the next. as long as you will maybe, hopefully, maybe see something here that is helpful or instructive, I'm satisfied. I'm not too concerned with doing the ultimate realistic render. That's, I think, not too interesting to me, but also, if I'm completely honest, I lack the training and skill to accomplish that within a reasonable time frame. Yeah, we'll leave it at this and maybe move on to the next one. This may be nice to show this kind of occlusion around the buttocks combined with this core shadow here, really showing the tension in the glutes here. Maybe some more intricacy in the core shadow. Well, let's call this a finished one. And move on to the next. So this way, by the way, you can really just have fun and do a lot of studies, relatively quick studies and sketches, and I often feel quite liberated as I'm not too concerned about finishing every detail. Sometimes there's some detail like a hand that is nice and expressive and you want to capture. Sometimes it's just a torso, and that's also fine. And by the way, you can always come back to the previous sketch. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And beefing up some of the lines, maybe they got lost when you did the other sketch, or maybe the other sketch turned out a bit darker as you were a bit more confident, for example. And so you want to kind of equalize in terms of line definition and value contrast. I don't have this reference now at the ready anymore, but for a simple task like creating a little bit more line pronunciation and value contrast, that's not at all that necessary. All right. I think I'm gonna stop the recording for a little while now. Take a bit of a break. I've been at it for about 15 minutes. Not 15, that would be, well, about Henry Young level of charcoal rendering, or Scott Burdick, or you name him. But maybe I'll come back with a part 2. So bye for now, and of course, thanks again for watching. Cheers everyone, bye.